Last fall, I went apple picking in an orchard. The farmer sold apples, apple cider, apple jam, and dried apples with the skin on. I laughed and said, "You use everything except the seeds." He smiled and said, "We use those too." I couldn't imagine how he used seeds, but then he pointed to the trees. "How do you think those grew?" We both laughed, and then he told me about the trees. Click the hotspots to find out what I learned. When you are ready to continue your journey into plant life cycles, click Next. The farmer showed me a small apple tree. He said that it can take 4 or 5 years for the tree to grow big enough to make apples. Then it will grow pretty pink blossoms and crunchy apples. If I plant my seeds, I wonder if some will grow into apple trees. The farmer said he tries to keep animals off the branches. Many animals, from insects to raccoons, like to eat the apples. Bad news for the farmer, but good news for the apple seeds. A raccoon might carry the apple away, eat part of it, and then drop it. This releases the seeds from the fruit so that a new apple tree can grow in a new place. I bought some apples to take home. When Mom cut open the apples, there were tiny brown seeds inside. It's hard to believe that these tiny seeds can grow into apple trees. Welcome to the lesson, What are some plant life cycles? In this lesson, you'll learn about how different plants go through their life cycles. The vocabulary words for this lesson are life cycle, flower, reproduce, germinate, pollination, pollen, cone, and spore. Click each word to find out more about it. This person is a beekeeper, someone who raises bees and may harvest their honey. Bees are responsible for 80% of the plant pollination that happens on Earth. Click play to see a beekeeper working. Seeds are amazing. A tiny seed can grow into a flower or a towering tree. Along the way, the plant goes through some incredible changes. All the stages a plant goes through, from the beginning of one generation to the next, are the plant's life cycle. Click each image to learn more about plant life cycles. Many plants begin their life cycles as seeds. A seed contains a new plant that will sprout or begin to grow. When a seed gets the right amount of water, warmth, and air from the environment it is living in, the seed germinates. Germination is when a seed starts to grow. The seed then grows into a seedling. In this plant, the seedling has fully grown into an adult plant. The adult plant begins to grow flowers. The flower is beautiful, but it has an important job too. The flower is the part of this plant that helps it reproduce and make new plants. When a plant reproduces, it makes more plants of the same kind. The flower will eventually produce new seeds. Can you see the seed in this plant part? You might not think of an avocado as a fruit, but in science it is. Fruit often surrounds a seed. You've probably seen a pine tree with pine cones. What you won't see on a pine tree is a flower. Pine trees have a slightly different life cycle. Click the images to learn more about this plant's life cycle. Where are the seeds in this plant? In the cone. The cone is where the seeds form in some non-flowering plants. The cone helps to protect the seeds. What happens when the seed falls to the ground and germinates? Just as with a flowering plant, the seed will begin to sprout and grow. With the right conditions, the seedling will grow into an adult plant. When the plant grows, it will produce cones. Generally, there are male and female cones. Male cones are smaller and contain pollen. Pollen is a yellow powder that female plant parts need to make seeds. You may have seen pollen on flowers. Female cones are usually larger and produce egg cells that join with pollen to make new seeds. Plants go through a cycle in which they grow and mature and become adults. Click the image that shows the stage in the plant's life cycle when reproduction begins. That's not correct. Germination is when the seed sprouts. You can try again. Not this one. The seed is the offspring of the plant. Try again. That's right. Reproduction will happen in the flower of this adult plant, where new seeds will be formed. The flower is where the plant reproduces and new seeds are formed. Pollen is the sticky, yellow powder you see on a plant. Pollination occurs when pollen from male plant parts is moved to female plant parts. You may be surprised by how many ways pollen moves. Click the images to see how pollen can travel. This bee looks busy. When it lands on a flower, the pollen sticks to the bee's legs or body. When the bee lands on other flowers, the pollen is transferred to the new flower. Bees and other insects move pollen from one flower to another flower. Birds also help pollinate plants. When this hummingbird drinks nectar from a flower, pollen gets on the hummingbird's beak and face. The hummingbird carries the pollen to other plants and helps to pollinate them. Would you be surprised to know that the wind helps to pollinate plants? This picture shows how the wind blows seeds from one location to another. Corn has both male and female parts on the same plant. Pollen from other corn plants falls on this corn silk, pollinating the plant. This is what's happening to the corn in this image. Once seeds are pollinated, they need to find the right spot to grow. If too many seeds are in one place, there won't be room for all the plants to grow. As this animal moves, stores, and eats the cone, it helps disperse the seeds. Some seeds have coverings that allow the seeds to travel when the wind blows. Can you see what helps this seed travel in the wind? Do you like to blow on dandelion seeds? You are helping the seeds to travel. The seeds of dandelions are like parachutes, which help them travel in the wind. This tumbleweed is on the move, and so are its seeds. When this tumbleweed plant blows along the ground, its seeds are being blown with it. You know that pollen can travel from a flower or cone to other plants, but not all plants reproduce using pollination. Click the images to see how other plants reproduce. Mosses and ferns make spores instead of seeds. These spores are part of the process for growing new mosses and ferns. Sugarcane produces seeds, but it also grows from buds. Can you see the bud? It is the small part of the plant growing out of the side. Canes can be cut into sections that have buds. These sections can then be planted to grow new sugarcane stalks. Some plants can be made without seeds, spores, or buds. People can join part of one plant to a different plant to grow a new kind of fruit or vegetable. This is how seedless oranges are grown. You've learned many ways that plants go through their life cycles. Which of these images shows the process of pollination? Click the correct image. Great job! The butterfly helps bring pollen from one plant to another plant, which is one way plants are pollinated. You've learned that plants go through their life cycles in different ways. Think about the way these plants begin their life cycles. Then, sort them into two groups, plants that reproduce using seeds and plants that reproduce using spores. Drag each image to the correct box. Good job! Most plants, such as tomatoes, pine trees, and maple trees, reproduce using seeds. Other plants, such as mosses and ferns, reproduce using spores. Great job! You've learned a lot about the life cycles of different plants. Let's review the main ideas from the lesson. Many plants start out as a seed that germinates as it receives light, warmth, and water from its environment. The seed then sprouts and grows into a seedling. A seedling grows into an adult plant. The adult plant will be able to reproduce to make other new plants. Pollination is the process of pollen being taken from one plant's flower or cone and put onto another plant's flower or cone. Bees, birds, animals, insects, and wind help to spread pollen from one plant to another. Seeds need to be spread out over an area so they can have room to grow. Animals help disperse seeds, and some seeds are shaped in ways that help them get carried by the wind. Some plants reproduce by other means. Mosses and ferns reproduce using spores, and sugarcane can reproduce using buds. Now that you've finished this lesson, if you wish, you can go back and review any part of the lesson again.